amongst bartenders, amongst drinks, amongst bars. And our next speaker is here to shine light on what we might expect and how we might learn from the mistakes or successes of our kitchen equivalents. So please welcome to the stage, Lisa Abend.
Actually make up this title. I published an article about this subject and people started sending me suggestions like what you should actually call it, so it's been a collaborative effort. As Monica said, I am a journalist. I write a lot about restaurants and chefs. I'm going to talk today about the relationship of chefs and restaurants to celebrity and to attention in general. I know that this is not exactly the same as what you guys do, but I think that, or I hope at least, that there will be some resonance there for you, things that sound familiar, and then at the very end of the talk I'm going to try and make it a little more pointed toward the drink side of the hospitality industry. I wanted to start by telling you about a night that happened exactly 10 years and 1 month ago. This was on May 24th in Copenhagen, and it was the first edition of Cook It Raw. Cook It Raw was this event, a gathering that brought together, I think it was 12 relatively well-known, but very talented and very creative chefs. Brought them to Copenhagen with the idea that that they would be introduced to the local products there, to some of the food culture there, and then with what they learned, they would cook a dinner together. And I know that at this point, you guys are all sitting there saying, yeah, big deal. Because, you know, you're all used to guest chef events, to pop-ups, to traveling around the world to do collaborations. But a decade ago, that was not the case. And everything about this event was new. It was really, really unfamiliar to the chefs who were included, which were, for example, René Redzepi was one of them, Albert Adria, David Chang, Massimo Bottura, Claude Bozy. And these guys had met, and I'm using the word guys very pointedly, it was all men. They had met before, but many of them had met, but they really didn't know each other, and they certainly weren't friends at that point. They had definitely heard of each other, however, and they were all a little bit, believe it or not, a little bit intimidated by each other's presence. And so when we got on the bus this first day, it was taking us someplace that we didn't know where we were going, it had this kind of nervous energy of like kids going to their first day of summer camp. You know, you could just see the thought wheels in their heads, like, am I going to know anybody? Is anybody going to talk to me? Am I going to embarrass myself? But this is what happened. I love this photo. This is actually, oh, no, you can't see this photo. Sorry. How did that happen? Okay, let's try this again. There we go. Okay, this photo is the one that I love. This is David Chang, and I had never met him before. No, many of the chefs had never met him before, but of course, his reputation definitely preceded him as just this like angry, trash-talking bully of a guy. And then here you have him at the first Cook It Raw with his little basket and his little scarf and his little flowers, and he looks like, you know, a fucking wood nymph or something. And that was kind of the power of what this event could do. Everything about it seemed very new and unfamiliar. It was so new, even like foraging. We didn't really know about that. And so like when René Redzepi walks into a pond and reaches down and pulls a bulrush out of the water and just starts gnawing on it, there was an audible gasp, like, oh, what is he doing? It was the first time any of us had ever tasted sea buckthorn. It was the first time for some of the chefs. We went to a farm, an asparagus farm, and it was the first time that some of the chefs had ever actually talked to a farmer. All of these things would become trends later on, but they were still new. And the dinner itself was extraordinary. I could walk you through the food, which was amazing, but that's not really what I remember. Actually, I do remember the food. But what really stands out from that night was the feeling in the room. And not just the dining room, but the kitchen as well. That's their staff meal from it. For these chefs, they were all so thrilled to be working next to each other, working with people who shared their dedication to craft, to perfection, who honored tradition but really wanted to push things forward, and that they left this dinner feeling inspired to be even more creative. And the whole feeling, it was just palpable, was joy. When the dinner was over, they came into the dining room and actually danced. So that night feels to me like the start of something. It felt like you had all of these guys who were sort of working in isolation up until that point, each of them trying to develop his own vision of cuisine that hadn't really been accepted yet. In some cases, it was outright rejected. But then they kind of found each other. They found their tribe. And in that discovery, I think they also gained a kind of confidence to go forward, to push things ahead even more. So there was a start. But when I look back on it now, I also think that it was the end of something in some way, because I don't know that I've ever seen any of them as happy again as they were that night. Like I said, many of them were well known at that point, but in the years that followed, they would become outright superstars. Sorry. No? No? These were sort of not coming up. There we go. What was I doing wrong then? Okay, well, this is not what it's not doing what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to be populating. Let's see. Oh, are you going to make me do this all by hand? Okay, so I'll just click. Okay, David Chang, you can see, he would go out, he would win awards, he would be on magazine covers, he would write books, he would start his own magazine, he would be on TV shows, and not just shows about cooking, he would be like a walk-in part on a feature TV series. He would get sponsorship and have Nike make his own shoes for him, win all kinds of awards, start his own podcast, and just started a new media platform together with a celebrity from a whole different area. Let's see, let's try this again. With Massimo Bottura, same thing. Magazine covers, awards, books, chef's table, fashion spread in Italian Vogue, partnership with Gucci, and of course with René Redzepi, all kinds of magazine covers, more books, television shows, fashion show, whoops, sorry, this is very tricky. Okay, just stop. Okay. That last thing, by the way, in the bottom left-hand corner is the letter telling him that he's being knighted by the Queen of Denmark. And yes, even the asparagus farmer became famous from this in the years that followed. That asparagus farmer has 11,000 followers on Instagram right now. So all of these guys became leaders in their field and beyond their field, really. And they had opportunities that they never could have imagined when they were in culinary school. But they also found themselves in that ensuing decade spending less time and less energy devoted to the things that had drawn them into the field in the first place, into working with their team, into developing their craft, creating new recipes, into basically cooking. They spent more time managing their image, or as they would learn to call it, as we've all learned to call it, their brand. Now this didn't happen overnight. It was a slow evolution that predates 2009. But in the past 10 years, in the past decade, those forces that had been kind of gathering steam for a while really kind of took off. It became almost this sort of perfect storm where they kept feeding each other into something of a frenzy. So, I'm going to focus on what I see as three of those forces that would come into play. Let me see if I can get the right. First is celebrity. Of course, there have always been celebrity chefs pretty much since when restaurants began. There would be noted, renowned chefs in the 18th century, 19th century. In the 20th century, Paul Bocuse was on the cover of Time magazine in the 1970s. Marco Pierre White was the first rock star chef. Right in the beginning of the 1990s is when the Food Network launched and put chefs on TV, cooking on TV 24 hours a day, and made a handful of chefs, the Jamies, the Marios, the Gordons, into household names. Cooking then became entertainment, and it didn't stay with just cooking, because once you get an audience used to or really interested in watching chefs on TV, they want to go watch it in person. And so eating out, which had been up until that point, with some regional variations, had been pretty much something you just did on special occasions. Eating out itself became entertainment, and it changed the way that not just that people dined, but the actual restaurants themselves. This is where you see the birth of an open kitchen, or where chefs for the first time in the history of the restaurants come out from behind the swinging doors and go out into their dining rooms to like mingle with their guests and that sort of thing. People want to see them now. As their status rises, they come to be seen as having specialized knowledge that's worthy of being shared. So there are conferences organized for chefs to get together and do this. They become sort of cultural figures. They're offered book contracts, and not just cookbooks, but memoirs and insider secrets behind the kitchen doors. There are films made, TV series, competitions, all of that kind of thing. Cuisine, in other words, became an area of public life in which attention itself had become a valuable commodity. And for chefs at that point, the question basically became, how do I get more of it? This institution had part of the answer. The World's 50 Best Restaurant Organization started in 2002. You probably have heard the origin story. Restaurant magazine, trade magazine, based here. There were two editors sitting around late one night, definitely stoned, trying to figure out how they could get more attention for their magazine. And in this pot-infused haze, they're like, oh, hey, let's do a list. And they based it on the idea of a music list, in the same way as you might have 100 best albums of the year or something like that. They thought, oh, let's start this list of best restaurants. Chefs loved it, and they loved it for many reasons, but two main ones. The first is that it was seen as more transparent and more in touch with the sort of actual dining scene, with what was happening on the ground, than other older, more stodgy, more mysterious institutions like the Michelin Guide. They also loved the fact that the voters for these awards were made up in part of their own peers. Chefs were on the jury, and so when you made the list, you knew that you had the approval of your community, of the people that you actually worked with and who you most admired. So this thing that started as a whim actually grows stronger and stronger and becomes more influential. And as it becomes influential, it has a real impact on restaurants. Restaurants that make the list see their bookings increase, sometimes by 100% over. Many restaurants have said, I would never have made it if we didn't get onto the list. And a spot in the top 10 or the number 1 can collapse a whole reservation system. So it has a huge impact in that sense, for good. But the thing about this voting system is that its very strength is also its greatest weakness. And what I mean by that is you have this jury of somewhere, it's ranged over time, but somewhere between 700 and 1,000 plus people who are supposed to vote on the 10 best dining experiences they've had in the previous 18 months. What are the problems with that? Well, one of the problems is that they're human and they are going to go to restaurants that they hear about. And that means that sometimes the list comes to reflect more what's new or hot or getting a lot of buzz than what is truly great or the best. But maybe a more significant problem is that people learn pretty quickly that the list can be manipulated and even gamed. You can't influence what restaurants somebody marks off on their ballot, but you can get people to come to your restaurant and you can make sure that they have an extra good time while doing it if you fly them across the world business class and put them up in a 5-star hotel and maybe throw in a spa treatment or 2. And that's really what happened. And it happened in part because another industry, the PR industry, also saw an opportunity in chefs and restaurants as they came to have more of a presence. Up until this point, a restaurant might hire a PR company just to help with its opening or something like that. But now they're on full-time contracts, and a PR person is going to say, sometimes they'll even market themselves on their ability to get restaurants onto the list. So they might, they're going to set up events. They're going to encourage the chefs that they represent to spend all this time flying around from conferences, going from one event to another. Oh, let me have one of my clients in Bangkok host a special event where I can invite another of my clients in Italy and have them get together and do this special meal, and that's worthy of press, and we'll fly voters in, and now we've got 2 of our chefs together, they'll both get on the list. All of this contributes to 50 Best itself becoming bigger and more powerful. It goes from being this ranking to a corporate machine. They have other events in other parts of the world, other lists in other parts of the world, and they even at some point hire their own publicists and their own sort of army of influencers as well. Which brings me to the third component, which is media. I'm not going to really go into all that. I'm really running out of time here, but the conventional media, as we all know, is threatened by the rise of first the internet and then of social media. And where this feeds in, where especially social media feeds in with this whole publicity and attention thing, is that influencers in particular are not operating under the same standards that conventional or old school journalists might be. They don't have necessarily the same standards or training, nor should they, because their goals are different. Their goals are to inspire and to create aspiration. And so these people, they are in general happy to take comps. They're happy to ask for comps. They are happy to establish their own credibility, not by doing deep, thoughtful reporting, but by taking selfies with famous chefs. Or by forming partnerships with restaurants in which they get free meals and plane tickets, and the chef gets a post that goes out to their 300,000 followers. Everybody knows this. All restaurants get asked for it, and plenty of chefs go along with it. And they do it not because they're dumb or weak, but they do it because it makes sense. statistics show over and over again that if you're talking about the millennial generation, they get they make their decisions on where to eat, where to drink, where to go on holiday, not from reviews or guidebooks. They make it based on what they see on Instagram. So yes, this does fill seats for restaurants. So very quickly, let me see. So you have these like three forces that are kind of bearing down on the chef: celebrity, 50 best, social media, chef there, and then all of these things start expanding even more. So let's see, I'm clicking along, there we go. You get new awards, new conferences, new guides, new events. Yeah, it just keeps going. I can just keep going like this. Oh, sorry. So, let's go back. And what this means for the chef is that they will spend less time in the kitchen, more time on the road, more pressure to host their own events, to get voters and influencers. There are more and more organizations that are trying to help chefs, but actually exist to make money off of chefs. There are new awards that promise new forms of attention. There are new armies of journalists and bloggers and influencers to attend to. And it's exhausting, and I think it's also soul-sucking in some ways. I don't think it's a coincidence that we have seen so many great chefs very recently, and many of the ones who were at that Cook It Raw, that first Cook It Raw, decide that they want to be doing something more. Whether it is Magnus Nilsson, who recently announced he was closing Fabiken because it just wasn't fun anymore, or whether it's somebody like René Redzepi, who is opening a school devoted to chefs' leadership, or Ferran Adrià, who's opening a foundation about creativity, or Dan Barber, who's starting a seed company. I think you see, or Massimo Bottura, who's opening these refectorios that are feeding the hungry. I think one of the things that you see in that is people looking for meaning in their lives that they might have once got from cooking. There's something else that concerns me about this, which is that when you write about this kind of stuff, which is as I do, people will come, after they read your work, they'll come up to you and they'll tell you other things. And I have a long list of things that I could go through, but I'm just gonna hit some of the big ones. They tell you about depression. This is a quote from a 3-star Michelin chef. I feel that commercial lists and fucked up popularity contests have spread like a disease within my mind. I feel my focus slipping, and all of a sudden I start worrying about networking and landing at a certain number between 1 and 50 because of reasons defined by other people. They tell you about guests who have 50 best voter printed on their business cards, which they slip on the tray when the bill comes. They tell you about somebody who is a renowned voter for another one of these ranking systems called Opinionated About Dining, who, when she finally got a table at one restaurant that she had wanted for a long time, and the power went out and they were unable to continue service, and they tried to do everything to serve her, and yet were unable to. She refused to leave because this was who she was. And they will also tell you, and yeah, as I learned recently, let's see, yeah. They'll also tell you that 50 Best would change its rules because chefs felt it was too painful to slide down the list once they moved out of number 1. And they do all of this, I should say, not all of it, this was not, but much of it they do off the record. And why does anyone tell a journalist anything off the record? It's because they're afraid. So think about that for a second. Think about what it means for an organization that purportedly exists to support and celebrate the hospitality industry, that it is feared by the people it supposedly represents. I hear people refer to 50 Best as heroin, as crack, as Golem's ring, but it's not just 50 Best, it's all of it. It is this whole circus, this whole swamp, this whole quest for attention that is so addictive. What does this mean for all of you in the drinks business, in the drinks industry? I know you have your own 50 Best, I know it's influential. I know that you also have brands to contend with, and brands are using you to promote themselves, and you're using them also to promote yourselves. I know that you yourselves or some of your colleagues hire publicists, that some of you are celebrities, that you travel the world doing events. I know that you relinquish your own intellectual property in competitions, so that by turning over recipes, if you win, and you do this in exchange for exposure or attention. I'm not saying, believe it or not, I'm not saying that we should walk away from all of this. I know that restaurants and bars are first and foremost a business, and they don't work if they aren't financially stable. I know that 50 Best and all of the other awards have done real good, important good for this industry. And I know that we are all human, and humans like approval. We like attention. We deserve approval. I'm not suggesting that any of you go and give it all up and become like cocktail monks up in the mountains with hand-carved shakers or something. But I am suggesting, since the theme of this is understanding, that we try and think a little bit harder about the world of hospitality that we are building. Don't give up on rankings, but think about whether those rankings are valuable if you know they've kind of been paid for. Instead of changing the rules to avoid somebody's hurt ego, maybe it's worth changing the rules in favor of greater transparency and integrity. It might be worth remembering that all of those institutions, the 50 Best, the media, the awards, the influencers, all those things that feel so powerful to you, you are more powerful than they are. They cannot exist without you. They need you. Without you, they have nothing to say, they have nothing to celebrate, they don't have any content, they have nothing to make money off of. It's also worth understanding how this quest for attention works as a system, that it all kind of feeds off of itself, and that it can come at the cost of other things you might care about. Finally, that you are not powerless within it. You have helped make it, we have all helped make it, and we can all remake it into the industry that we want. So as I'm going to go back as my very closing to this last slide. No, I'm not, sorry. It was the slide of Chang again. And just say, in the course of my career, I've interviewed hundreds, if not thousands, of chefs, bartenders, somms, servers, and I always ask why they got into the profession. Not one of them, at least no one who was any good, not one of them ever said, it's because I want to be famous. They got into it for the things that I saw at that one Cook It Raw dinner. They got into it for the craft, for the camaraderie, for the sense of belonging to a tribe, and for the joy of making other people happy. It's worth understanding that too. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. So, for our next collaboration, we are inviting one of our speakers back on stage, but now for a different cause. So Lars, please join the stage for the collaboration with Empirical Spirits. Woo.
Thank you, Lisa. That was a brilliant talk. This is amazing. There you go. What Lisa was talking about, I think, is very critical for the restaurant industry, which I used to be a part of. And I was actually at that first Cook It Raw dinner, and it was one of the most magical experiences of my life. But what Lisa was talking about is also important for everyone to understand, because it's one of the reasons I left the culinary world. And it became very important to me when thinking about what I wanted to do next, that building a team, that building a family that would support each other, have that be a nucleus, and for us to together have every interaction with the world be a positive thing, that every time we touch the world would be a better thing, was something that was the most critical thing to me. So last year we made this. This was actually, gotcha, sorry. So we were working last year on a habanero spirit, and I was sort of trying to figure out a name for it because unfortunately for the rest of the team I have to figure out the names for it. And I was thinking about a Mexican revolutionary or a saint or something that made sense because habaneros have obviously a direct correlation to Mexico for me. And there was this family separation thing going on the southern border of the States, and I said, fuck it. You know, we're going to call the spirit is fuck Trump and a stupid fucking wall. So we made that last year. But this collaboration is not about this. This collaboration is about more of the fermentation that we were talking about earlier. So what we've done is actually in your guys' bags already. It's the box that's inside of the box is something called Hot Sauce 1. I tend to call it the fuck Trump sauce. Because this is what's basically us rejigging a lot of our fermentation processes into what is not only a secondary but a tertiary product. So we start off with habaneros, a ton of habaneros. There's about for each bottle of fuck Trump, there's about almost half a kilo of habaneros in each bottle. We do an alcoholic distillation, then we reuse those, make a vinegar out of it, distill that vinegar, blend the two. For a collaboration that we've done with Mr. Lion, we take koji, we blacken it, which is basically using the enzymatic process that the koji produces itself to autolyze and then caramelize as well. We distill that, but we have a ton of all these products left over. So then for a third product that we commonly have a quince tea alcoholic distillation that we then reuse the quince tea for making a quince tea kombucha. We distill that as well, and we're left over with, which essentially is like a syrup. So this hot sauce is a blend of these three different products, and I think for us a way to sort of showcase how a little bit of creativity and inventiveness can really transform what would be considered waste stream. Thank you.
It's time for our last talk. Much have changed over the past 2 decades of bartending, yet still somehow so many things remain the same. Here to share his perspective on all things bartending, Jeffrey Morgenthaler.
I was told to speak loudly. Is this loudly enough? I don't even need a microphone. Hi. Higher? Okay. Hi. God, I hate this stuff. I'm not used to this. I don't like speaking in public. I'm not used to talking to this many people unless there's like a bar between us and I'm just like telling all of you to get the fuck out. That's great. If you would laugh more during this, I would really appreciate it. I was on national TV last year, and it was less nerve-wracking than getting up in front of a bunch of my peers and speaking. So this is, I really appreciate you being patient with me. Hi, my name is Jeffrey Morgenthaler. I manage 2 bars. Thank you. I manage 2 bars in Portland, Oregon, which is like really fucking far from here. One is Clyde Common. It's the bar in a restaurant. It's a big, busy restaurant. The other one is Pepe La Moco. It's a very quiet little cocktail bar. I've written 2 books, the bar book, Elements of Cocktail Technique, and Drinking Distilled, which just came out a little while ago. I was a writer for Playboy magazine for like 6 years. I've done this, maybe this is like maybe my 4th or 5th time speaking in public. I do a bunch of stuff, that's what like I think a lot of people here know me for. What my like friends and my family and my coworkers know me for is this. Do I point at this TV? Who do I point this at? Like, is it there? Okay. They know me for this. This guy, not really the guy like screaming at customers, but the guy who's been behind the bar. I have been behind the bar full time, without a break, for, get the fuck away from that, for 23 years. I started tending bar in 1996. Those are 2 pictures of me in 96, tending bar at a beer bar. This is really what my friends know me for, and this is probably why I'm up here, because I'm one of the few people left that actually still tends bar every single night of the week, or not every single night of the week. I would be dead if I did it every single night of the week. I have seen a lot of stuff come and go over the years. I picked a bunch of like really embarrassing photos of myself for you, so you could like have a good laugh over the years tending bar. Particularly this one where I had like that little soul patch thing. I know. I've seen a lot of things over the course of the last 23 years. I've seen a lot of trends. When I started working in bars were not very like nice. I mean, I'm in London, and like bars in London were nice back in 1996. But like in the rest of the world didn't really have like nice bars. Bars were a place where like you just kind of like went to get drunk and maybe like pick up on someone and lather, rinse, repeat, right? That's what a bar was. And then like, at least for us in the States, like there was the whole like craft brew thing, and so people came into the bars looking for like fancy beer, you know, and then there was like the whole kind of like martini craze. I was there for that, when everybody was like ordering martinis. We had those like giant fucking martini glasses. And then the cocktail kind of happened, and that's been the thing for the past at least like 10, 15 years. And then there's this like sort of new thing that's happening where the people are coming in, not necessarily for the drink, but for the bartender, right? Like people come in for the bartender. They come to see you because you are an artist and you create a special thing. And it's a very weird switch where people came into a bar to see each other, and you were essentially the person that just got them the drinks very quickly, and now you're the focus, which for me, obviously I don't really like being the focus of attention. When I told a lot of my friends from the kind of previous generation of bartenders that I was going to be coming here today, and that Monica wanted me to talk about, you know, sort of the things that I've seen over the past, you know, almost quarter century, every one of them said, you gotta fucking talk about internet bartenders, stuff like all the stuff that like Lisa was talking about, the search for awards, the Instagram accounts, the influencers, the bartenders that want to be famous on Facebook and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And it's true. I mean, I kind of like couldn't really get, I kind of like can't get up here and like lambast that shit, because Jörg Meyer was reminding me a few hours ago, 10 years ago this year, I got up in front of a group of people at the very second BCB ever, and I talked about how to reach a wider audience around the world through the internet, right? But that was all kind of like focused on how to contribute and what channels to get your contributions through. And I think today, there is a lot of truth in the fact that like people are really like sort of searching for fame, right? Like how to up your cocktail game on Instagram, how to, you know, like Lisa was saying, like how to do 50 best bars and all that kind of stuff. And I think the difference between me and that sort of mentality is that I come from a place where I did what I did to get here, not because I wanted to get here, but because I wanted to contribute. I got here by sharing recipes and techniques and things that I had learned, not because I thought that it would be great to be a famous bartender, because back then there was no such thing as a famous bartender. I did what I did because I love what I do, and I love sharing with bartenders. I love bartenders. I love giving back and telling people like, I just learned this crazy thing about ginger beer. Here it is for free. Like, but we see this stuff today, like it's sort of like morphed into this like strange kind of thing, right? Like this kind of stuff, like these. I think we've all seen these Instagram accounts. I was talking to Monica and Alex last night, and they were saying that none of these people would be here today, which is really great because I'm not going to really say any nice things about them. But this sort of thing, like, has everyone here seen an Instagram account like this that's just like, you know, pretty pictures of cocktails and like not really much content? Like, is everyone familiar with the sort of like Instagram blogger? Yeah? No? Yeah. This one in particular, that Thomas Brody. You know, it's like a lot of really sexy pictures of cocktails, and nothing that like really like reaches out and touches our industry. Oops, same problem as everybody else. Where do I point this thing? Do I point it in my mouth? Oh, this kind of stuff. They say that bitters are the backbone of a cocktail, really loving the spice in these Angostura bitters. What are some of your favorites? Does anybody in here think that that kind of shit pushes the conversation forward, teaches anyone anything? Has everyone seen accounts like this? Yeah. Does anybody else think that like something like really loving the spice in these bitters is just like fucking worthless? Does anybody say fucking horseshit like, they say that bitters are the backbone of the cocktail? What the fuck does that mean? Bitters are the backbone of the cocktail? Like maybe it's nothing. It's fucking horse shit, right? But this account has like fucking 8,000 followers and whatever, and this account is already getting reached out by PR companies and by brands to collaborate. And the reason I know this is because I made this Instagram account in my living room. I got like a $50 like Visa gift card, and I just typed in how to buy Instagram followers, and I bought 7,500 Instagram followers on Instagram with my little Visa gift card. And then I've been teaching myself photography for the past year, and I set up a little studio in my house, and I've been taking these pictures and posting these like horse shit. And I have no doubt that if like I had stuck with this secretly for the past like year, I could be getting invited on like crazy fucking trips, you know, crazy experiences, crazy whatever for an Instagram account that it doesn't fucking mean anything. And Thomas Brody, by the way, is the kid from Love Actually. I love that movie. I fucking love that guy. He's so good. Yeah, so I made that whole thing up. I didn't really have a lot of time to like, my whole dream with this talk was like to turn that into like a very famous Instagram account. I kind of ran out of time because like I said, I tend to borrow all the time. Yeah. So, there's this thing, and I've been talking to friends a lot about that, and it's the paradox of longevity in the bar business. And it all came from this conversation. The conversation goes like this. If you ask any professional bartender what their least favorite question in the world is, it is, what's your real job? Right? Is that your least favorite question? We have a bunch of professional bartenders. Is that maybe your least favorite question? What's your real job? I get it. Oh, well, I don't really get it that much anymore because I'm old and people are like, he's never gonna have a fucking real job. But like, I got it for many years. I get very offended when somebody, you know, I used to get very offended when somebody's like, what's your real job? Because I was like, you know, I take this shit seriously, right? I'm a career bartender. I'm serious about my craft. And I think most bartenders feel the same way. However, if you ask those same bartenders, where do you see yourself in 5 years? How many of them do you think say, working right here behind the bar? Not enough. Not enough. the previous generation of bartenders, of which I am a part, redefined success in the bar industry. It used to be that when you were a bartender, you would either maybe own a bar and live upstairs, or fucking die behind the bar, right? And the last generation, of which I'm part of, redefined success, right? Simon Ford, I fucking love Simon Ford, right? Like, he was like that fucking rock star, still is. Like, what a fucking amazing success story, right? He went from bartender to globally famous brand ambassador to owning his own spirits company, which just got sold for hopefully a bunch of money. That is fucking crazy. It's awesome. It's wonderful. However, we all need to stop and think about what that means for bartending. And it sends a message to further generations that in order to be successful in the bar industry, you need to get out from behind the bar. And I think that that's being pushed along by a lot of myths. I'm running out of time, but fuck it. It's nice and cool in here. You guys are gonna be. There's a narrative about tending bar that is pervasive in our industry. And I think that that narrative is full of myths. One, that it is physically impossible to tend bar for more than 10 years. Have we all heard this? Have we all been to the seminars where it's like, you need to, you're gonna throw your elbow out, you're gonna fucking shake like a fucking idiot and break your arms and all this kind of stuff. I've been doing this for 23 years. I don't feel great. But I'm not fucking dying, right? Like, I just watched this thing on TV last night about Tony Hawk. The guy's been skateboarding for like 50 fucking years, right? He's still skateboarding. We just saw Laura talk about how she rode across the Atlantic at age 36. I think that you can shake a daiquiri a couple times a night and stand on your feet for more than 5, 10 fucking years. Am I right? It's not, I mean, like they're like nurses, there are policemen, there are fucking firefighters, there are all these people that do much more physical jobs. It's not really that hard. So you're being fed a myth that you can't do it. And if you stick behind the bar for more than 5, 10 years, that you're gonna blow out your whole body and you're gonna be in a wheelchair for the rest of your life. That is not true. Another myth is that you can't have meaningful, loving, wonderful relationships if you're a bartender, and that is absolute bullshit. I lead a team of 9 bartenders between the 2 bars. 2 of them are married, 1 of them is engaged. I am going to marry the love of my life. I know. She's watching. Everybody is in a long-term, healthy, wonderful relationship. Well, except for 2 of them, but that, this is 7 out of 9. Yeah, that's their choice. It's not impossible. It's not impossible. If your whole idea of I can't have a meaningful relationship because of my job, it's like predicated on it's just like you don't have to do cocaine every night and fucking cheat on your girlfriend. Like it's not like you don't. You can have a meaningful relationship. I've got a fucking bar full of them. Number 3, this one, that you have to be the best bartender in the world every single night, every time you step behind the bar, or just get the fuck out, right? Here's a bunch of the best bartenders in the world, and one guy who's okay. I have bad nights. I have really good nights. I have nights when I go home and I think like, I did a really good job tonight. I have nights when I go home and I think, I did a really fucking horrible job tonight. I have nights when I go home and I think, I love my job. I'm so full, I'm like going to sleep just so full of joy because I love my night, because my job, because of everything that happened tonight. I go home and I think to myself, I fucking hate my job. And that's okay, because it's a job. And you're allowed to love it and hate it sometimes. And I'm so if I have to sit through one more presentation from someone that hasn't been behind the bar in 5, 10, 15, 20 years about the gift and the blessing that is a challenging guest behind the bar, and how wonderful it is to receive just nothing but fucking hate and turn them around, and how you should all just love your job. And if you don't love your job, then get the fuck out, right? Why do we have such a tenuous grasp on bartending? Like, I know that after some people see this, I'm probably going to see some stuff on the internet that says, well, if Morgenthaler doesn't like his job sometimes, maybe he should quit and find a new industry. What the fuck is that? Are you kidding me? You would never say that to like a school teacher who was like, yeah, the kids were brats. Well, like, why'd you fucking quit teaching? Like, you wouldn't do that. We have such a tenuous grasp on bartending, and it's like, you know, we're so quick to tell each other or to tell other bartenders, you should just get the fuck out. Oh, I get so worked up. I'm sorry. Here's another myth. Another myth is that, like, you can't do all that stuff, right? You can't write books, and you can't be on TV, you can't give presentations, and you can't do all this shit if you're behind the bar. You need to get out so that you can get out there and get your name out. And that is fucking horse shit. And I'm telling you this because I've done all that stuff. I've written the books, I've written the articles, I've been on the TV, I've been up here on stage. And if you're telling me that it is fucking impossible to do any of this and achieve some notoriety because you're stuck behind the bar, that is absolute horse shit. And there's a way to do it. And I think that the way, at least the way I've done it, is by contributing. All I want to do is contribute. That's everything that drives me. I just want to contribute and give and give and give and give. And this is a hot take, but I don't think that contributing to the industry happens at your hour-long gin masterclass for the brand that you work for. And I don't think contributing to the industry happens at your luncheon with cocktail pairings, and I don't think it happens even right here, what I'm doing now. I think that it happens in those moments. Monica, you didn't change these slides, thank you. In these moments where you connect with people and you connect with your staff, and this is some of my staff, past and present, and I absolutely fucking love these people. And I think that that's where contributing happens, and who gives a shit if you get to fucking fly to Singapore and do a guest bartending shift. It's not really that important. Also, you can just do that. I can introduce you to some people if you want. And I'm still trying to contribute. Don't cut me off, please. I know I'm running late. Like I said, over the past year, I have been teaching myself photography. And I've been fortunate enough to put up 2 photo essays on thedailybeast.com, and I'm going to continue to do so. And I am using photography not to fucking highlight Angostura bitters and say, like, really loving the spice on these bitters, but to show these moments in the bar. This is 2 of my former coworkers at a memorial service for our wine director who passed away from cancer earlier this year. And I'm taking these photos and I'm posting them because I want to do more than just like take a picture of a fucking gin bottle and say like, who loves a martini? It's Martini Friday, hashtag. This is like what the bar industry to me means. This is two people who absolutely love this woman and who I absolutely love. And I'm on a new path where I'm gonna show all of these moments from behind the bar and around the bar and near the bar and about the bar. Fuck, sorry, Jesus Christ. And I would just encourage all of you to like, stay behind the goddamn bar and do something worthwhile, anything, share your knowledge, share your experiences, share your time. I don't really have a way to wrap this up, but just like, this is a pleading, like, we need you to stay behind the bar so badly. It's so important. And you have such a tremendous voice, and you all have tremendous passion because you've been sitting in this hot fucking room for 6 hours. It is absolutely unbearable. And so that's really it. I don't have a conclusion. I just wanted to say, I just wanted to say that. So thanks.
Wow. I hope many other bartenders all around the world are watching this now. We're almost there, but the day is not over because it's the beer time. So to introduce the beer collaboration of this year, as it is a tradition, welcome on stage Chris from Partisan, and the beers are called They Are Coming.
Good evening. How do you follow that? It's no coincidence, I think, that our word understanding describes not